Okay, Holy Paladin. I wish I had nicer things to say about Holy Paladins. I wish I could make a video about Holy Paladins that wasn't 90% criticism. But unfortunately, that isn't really the case. The silver lining here is that if you play Holy Paladin in Shadowlands, the I guess what people call now the melee version, and you want to continue playing that style in Dragonflight, then you should be fine. A lot of my criticism is more about what Blizzard have tried to do, and in my opinion, have missed the mark on, rather than the objective, strength of Holy Paladin. If you'd like being in melee, dropping your consecration, hitting Crusader strikes and holy shocks, and spending your holy power to heal and stuff like that, if you like that style, then you should be fine. Holy Paladin, that version of Holy Paladin, is seems perfectly fine. Not much has changed. When Paladins first hit beta, or at least the I guess this was alpha, but the data mining changes came through. We got the protection and retribution trees first, and Holy came. I think it was a week or two, maybe 3 weeks later, and that is definitely obvious. I feel like Blizzard have had I guess, a stated goal for Holy Paladins and just haven't quite been able to figure out how to get there and haven't been able to iterate upon what they want to do to Holy Paladins enough to make what they want work. I know that's a very roundabout way of saying they tried to make Holy Paladin casting work and it doesn't really work. There's a few reasons for this, at least in my opinion. A big part of the problem here is the class tree, I guess. I mean, I want to say the class tree isn't great, but also the spec tree isn't great. So I guess we'll start with the class tree. The class tree feels like it was designed primarily with ret and protection in mind, without really considering holy much at all. It's weird to see a class tree for something like Divine Steed for Paladins. People always memed that Paladins are the wheelchair class, and now they're spending 3 points in the middle of their class tree to have a Divine Steed in Dragonflight that's worse than the one in Shadowlands. I don't know how this kind of. I don't know if this is like a matter of tuning or if this is just what Blizzard want Paladins to be. Um, but this is kind of a microcosm of the Holy Paladins in general in Dragonflight. It seems like in a lot of aspects, they aren't really any better than they were in Shadowlands. Not much has changed. Not much has been gained, but I guess at the same time, not much has been lost. There's quite a few nodes like these consecration nodes that feel like just fillers. You're taking them because not because they're powerful or you want them. It's just you have to spend points somewhere. So I guess you put them there. The capstones for Holy, really lacking. You're either taking Zealot's Paragon and wasting 2 points on basically ret nodes, or you're taking Sanctified Wrath, which isn't anything new for Holy, really, or you're taking a weird Seal of Order and the Dusk and Dawn playstyle, which promotes a fully build and fully spend Holy Power playstyle that doesn't really work with healing. The nice part of the spec tree is that you really aren't spending anything to play the normal melee Holy Paladin build. You're basically taking Crusader Strike has 2 charges, and Crusader Strike reduces the cooldown of your Holy Shock, and I guess you play Glimmer and Divine Toll. It's actually, this whole left side of the tree isn't too bad at all. Right? Divine Toll, Beacon of Faith with no downside or no opportunity cost really is nice. You take Glimmer, yeah, Divine Toll, the Crusader Strike nodes, the Holy Shock crit nodes, and whatever. And then you're kind of left to spend the rest of your points on whatever you want. You basically completely avoid all the caster nodes on the right side of the tree, and you get everything else. I can see the melee paladin that basically just plays the left side of the tree and takes all of this stuff as being quite strong, especially with Blessing of Summer. It's not a fun spell to play around, in my opinion. It's not my cup of tea, but it's definitely objectively powerful. I don't think it's on the PI kind of level of power, but it's close. As far as the casted tree goes, I don't really know what Blizzard were trying to achieve here. Mastery is still proximity based. Pressing Crusader Strike is still the best way to gain Holy Power and reduce the cooldown on Holy Shock. You still have to drop Consecration under your character. There are so many things you give up to play a caster version without really, at least at the moment, tuning might change this, I guess, but without really gaining anything by casting. Part of the issue with the caster build is that you're effectively taking nodes that buff your infusion of light, which already buffs your flash of light and holy light. And if you're playing a caster holy paladin and you don't crit your holy shock, half of your talents aren't working. Like if damage is going out and you need to heal people and you holy shock someone and it doesn't crit, half of your talent tree doesn't work until your next holy shock crits, which makes the entire caster playstyle. It should feel like a kind of solid foundation, but it doesn't. It feels random. It feels like it can fail. It feels like sometimes it's just wholly underwhelming, which isn't great. Some talents at the moment are bugged, like the Soundless Salvation to extend your Tears Deliverance doesn't work. But even this whole Tears Deliverance and Power of the Silver Hand, the Blizzard Blue Post specifically stated that one of their design goals for Holy Paladin in Dragonflight was to bring these two spells back. Now, I don't know how a spec like Holy Paladin goes into Dragonflight and somehow loses Shock Barrier, which is probably the most favored or liked, most used legendary for all Holy Paladins for all of Shadowlands. Somehow they lose that ability when most other healers get to pick and choose between their Shadowlands legendaries and Covenant abilities. But somehow Holy Paladins lost their main one and then gained two completely obscure and useless abilities. Power of the Silver Hand only collects effective healing, and it only procs maybe once a minute. Now, this could change, I guess, but it still doesn't make any sense to me why a blue post, and I think it was Kvax, my guy Kvax, who's been doing such good work for some other specs. I don't understand why they make a blue post that points out two abilities specifically that they want to bring back for Holy Paladins, and then they're not capstones and they're not powerful. Just a lot of this doesn't really make sense to me. As far as what feels good and what positive things I have to say about Holy Paladin, the normal melee version of Holy Paladin, the non-caster version, is still good. You also spend so few points on the tree. You're only really spending 3 points. Crusader Strike has 2 charges, and the Crusader Strike reduces a Holy Shock. All the rest is just whatever you want. Beacon of Faith or Divine Toll, Summer, Glimmer, Wings, 40-yard, Lord range, whatever. You can take your pick. So you're very free to customize the melee build how you see fit and get some extra cooldowns or tools or whatever you want your playstyle, which is nice. You also get a couple of combinations that haven't been possible before, something like being able to take melee wings, Avenging Crusader, with the Awakening proc. I can't say it's particularly good or optimal, but it's definitely fun. Being able to just proc wings every now and then and hit a judgment and almost instantly top whoever's low in your party is it's satisfying. It's fun. Being able to also take 40-yard range Light of Dawn without having the large opportunity costs that had in Shadowlands of it taking up your legendary slot is nice and allows for a couple of extra combos that weren't possible before, like being able to take Marads and the big AoE Light of Dawn together. Blessing of Summers also has a lot of potential. It isn't a spell, I think, like I said earlier, that I like very much. And for all of beta until this week, it's been bugged where it only ever cast Blessing of Summer and didn't alternate to the other seasons. Now it does alternate, so every 45 seconds you can use Blessing of Summer. After you use summer, it becomes, I think, spring and then winter or autumn or whatever. You have to use it 4 times for it to cycle back to summer. It is strong, but it's difficult to get good usage out of the other seasons. It feels very much like Blessing of Summer and not the other 3. No one really gives a shit about the rest, fortunately. But that being said, it is still quite good. And all of this does seem like a lot of negatives, but tuning could change a lot of this outlook. It could fix quite a few problems. Even small changes could also go quite a long way. Something like your rule of law, getting some kind of additional effect for casting or even passives for casting to fix your mastery. Or something like being able to drop consecration on your beacon target or just on a target from ranged. Perhaps making it so if you do take Efflorescence of the Sun, well, your Holy Shock always grants at least 1 infusion of light, and then when it crits, you get 2, rather than getting none or 2 to try and ameliorate some of that feast or famine dynamic. And obviously, the fundamental Paladin kit is still exceptionally good. Like Devotion Aura, Freedom, Bop, now get Battle Res, Aura Mastery, Healing Buff, and Unity. I don't see Holy Paladins ever struggling to get invited to Raid or Mythic Plus. I don't think the melee version of Holy Paladin really needs that much more work. Some changes to the class tree could help a lot, but the casting version of Holy Paladin, it definitely feels like it needs some iteration. It doesn't feel like it's in a good spot. It's clunky, even if it's numerically strong. The whole spectre still feels a little bit lopsided with a lot of caster talents, which really don't do enough to make up for the intrinsic things you lose by standing at range and casting rather than being in melee. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, Blizzard find a way to kind of to balance the two play styles out in the talents. But yeah, algorithm stuff. Thanks.